Hello and welcome to ITV News West Country.
Thank you for joining us. The headlines this evening. Our children are worth more. Two West Country mothers asking the Prime Minister for tougher sentencing after both their daughters were violently murdered by their ex-boyfriends.
Coming up to 5 years later, it destroys you. It changes you completely as a person, as a family.
Also tonight, the Devon woman who thought she had hay fever but actually had a brain tumour. Plus,
looking for that authentic Ukrainian cuisine? Well, look no further. This is Cornwall's first Ukrainian cafe right here on Falmouth High Street.
And Charlie uncovers the secrets of a wartime airfield in Cornwall.
good evening and welcome to the programme. First tonight, a Somerset woman whose daughter was stabbed to death by an ex-boyfriend is calling for tougher sentences for domestic homicides.
Poppy Devi Waterhouse was stabbed more than 20 times by Joe Atkinson, who a court was told was consumed with jealousy. He was jailed for 15 years.
Well, tonight, Poppy's mother, Julie, told ITV News that violence against women and girls needs to be treated with the utmost seriousness. She's now joined the mothers of two other women killed in similar circumstances in her campaign for change. Verity Wishart has the story.
Young lives stolen from them as they were violently murdered at home. And now their mothers are coming together, not just battling their grief, but also the justice system. They're calling for more robust sentencing for domestic homicide after their daughter's killers were given sentences they felt were too lenient. Julie Devi from Somerset is the mother of Poppy Devi Waterhouse, who was killed by her ex-boyfriend, aged 24, just days before moving out of their flat.
Coming up to 5 years later, it destroys you. It changes you completely as a person, as a family.
Carol Gould from Wiltshire is the mother of Ellie Gould, who was murdered aged 17 in her parents' kitchen by an ex-boyfriend.
You know, she has such a bright future ahead of her. She was literally at home revising for her A-levels, and he did that after a 3-month relationship. You know, he came into our lives, into her life, and he destroyed it.
Elaine Newborough's daughter Megan was murdered aged 23 by a work colleague at his parents' home.
These monsters need to be put away, and they need to be put away for life, not just 10, 12 years.
Last weekend, the Prime Minister announced mandatory whole-life orders, vowing to keep the most heinous criminals behind bars. The killers in this scenario were given reduced sentences as a result of their victims being murdered with a weapon from within the home.
The murders of some of these women are absolutely horrendous, and yet their starting term tariff for sentencing is 15 years, compared to 25 years had the murder taken place outside of the home.
But these mums don't think it goes far enough and have published an open letter responding to the Prime Minister, calling on the government for longer domestic homicide sentences. These men are also the most despicable criminals and just plain evil, just like the ones you want to serve a whole life order to, yet they never qualify for even an uplift to a minimum of a 25-year prison sentence under current laws. We need societal change in the form of robust sentencing for all murders and a strong message that violence against women and girls will be treated with the utmost seriousness.
If you can kill somebody face to face, which is what's happening where women are either strangled or turned over, stabbed face to face, you're looking in the face of your victim, somebody you loved or had a relationship with, and if you can do that, you're a very, very dangerous person.
These mums are calling for change to protect women like their daughters from falling victim to these sorts of crimes.
Well, Verity, who you heard reporting there, joins us now. Verity, this is clearly a very emotive subject for those mothers. But what have the government had to say about this?
Well, the government have recently announced an overhaul on laws to protect women from domestic killers, and a consultation on this will be part of that. The Ministry of Justice told us research shows that around 1 in 4 homicides are committed by a current or former partner or relative. Recognising the complex nature of murder sentencing, ministers will also expand a planned consultation on a 25-year starting point for domestic murders with a history of controlling or coercive behaviour, to include murders using a knife or other weapon found at the scene. This will seek the public's views on the current difference between sentences for murder where a knife is brought to the scene compared to, for example, to one already in the home. Now, this increased starting point for sentences will be welcomed by those 3 mothers you saw there, most of all so that other people and other parents don't have to suffer the terrible loss that they've had to endure.
Absolutely. OK, Verity, thank you very much. Right, let's bring you some other news tonight. And a woman from South Devon who initially thought she was suffering with hay fever is now recovering from brain surgery to remove a tumour the size of a tennis ball.
Kieran Morgan from Chillington near Kingsbridge now wants to raise awareness of the condition. Richard Lawrence went to meet her.
Kieran Morgan considers herself a proud survivor. Having first complained of excessive hay fever-like symptoms during 2020, she was sent for a scan after returning to her GP when her symptoms failed to reduce. It showed the presence of a tumour that was pushing forward her right eye. A devastating shock for her and her family.
GP actually said, go and look on the cancer research website. There's a section on there for the type that I had, which was meningioma. But hearing cancer research, your world just dissolves around you. You know, how am I going to tell people? How am I going to cope? What does this mean? She was lovely and reassured me that it was okay and more than likely benign, but that shock still goes through you.
After waiting nearly a year, she underwent a 10-hour operation last October. Incredibly, her optic nerve wasn't damaged despite the pressure of the tennis ball-sized tumour against her eye.
So I have a big titanium plate across here. I actually have a scar that runs from the bottom of my ear here to the top of my ear on this side. I've got bolts under my eye here and around the top here, and a bolt panel here, which is what that creates the concave kind of look of my face.
The charity Brain Tumour Research says tumours are rare and can be difficult to diagnose.
Well, the route to a brain tumour diagnosis is rarely straightforward. It's a uniquely complex disease, and you might assume that the symptoms would always be headaches, but that isn't the case. They can be headaches, they can be seizures, but then there are other what are known as multifocal symptoms, which depend so much on where the tumour is sited. And in Kieran's case, obviously, it was an extremely complex siting around the back of the eye.
What's the main message that you want to get across, do you think?
Talk about it. If you've got a headache, if you've got something that doesn't feel right, talk about it. Just go to the GP. There's so many people that, and now it's coming to light that they had different symptoms than what you might think. It's not just headaches.
Kieran has set herself a challenge to raise money for the charity by trying to walk 10,000 steps a day with her dog Margot, who's also flying the flag.
I've managed it about 4 times so far, but I'm getting there. I will get there.
Kieran is enormously grateful to her doctors and surgeon as she continues her recovery and is now buoyed up by the support of followers for her fundraising. Richard Lawrence, ITV News.
So good to see her doing well, right?
And amazing that she's raising awareness too for her experience.
What a frightening thing, really frightening.
Now, it's sometimes known as the slow and silent killer, and asbestos still remains the #1 cause of workplace-related deaths here in the West Country.
Well, across the country, 5,000 people die each year from asbestos-related diseases. And campaigners are now calling for all traces of it to be removed from all public buildings within 40 years. Well, Nick Smith has been to one site in Somerset where work is already underway.
Nearly a century ago, it was hailed as a wonder material with countless uses.
The remarkable fire-resisting, sound-insulating product known as asbestos, at least 18,000 articles are made of it.
But we now know that breathing in its fibres can have horrific consequences, and asbestos must be removed where it poses an exposure risk, like at this site in Taunton. Asbestos has been banned for decades, but it's still thought to be present in around 1.5 million buildings across the country. Now, a removal has been taking place here in this old bakery, and I'm safe here behind this sealed viewing panel. But those on the other side of it must be wearing full protective kit to stop exposure to potentially lethal fibres. Gary Clark once lived in Dorset with his wife Debbie, but sadly she died aged just 48 from mesothelioma, a cancer directly linked to asbestos, leaving himself and his son to grieve with questions about where she was exposed to it.
It resulted in the loss of my wife. We'd known each other for 34 years. My son lost his mum, and that turned my life upside down and inside out. We don't really know where she was exposed to asbestos. We have a couple of theories, one of which is that she may have been exposed playing as a child in a farmer's barn with friends when she was about 10. Latency period's 40 years for mesothelioma, but we will never know.
Campaigners are now calling on the government to announce an action plan to remove it from all buildings within 4 decades.
People aren't getting as upset about this as I think they should be, because the time period in between inhaling asbestos fibres and developing illnesses such as mesothelioma can take anything up to 50 years.
So in the past, my clients were men and women who had worked directly with asbestos products, either in factories and shipyards. But now, in the last 15 years, I've seen a real sea change. My cases are completely different. They are nurses, doctors, people working in schools, because the fabrication, the building itself, has been constructed with asbestos products.
The government agency responsible for managing the risk, the Health and Safety Executive, says asbestos should be removed where it is in poor condition or cannot be safely managed. Where a building is in good condition, proactive removal of asbestos may create more exposure than it prevents. Back at the bakery, the contractors working here say the material is so widespread we will struggle to remove it all through conventional means.
Asbestos, by its nature, by the number of different building materials that it's contained in some cases buried deeply within the structure of a building, and it's not able to be removed prior to sort of final demolition. So I think we're always going to have some legacy asbestos to deal with in the future.
This once hailed wonder product still has a toxic legacy, one which we may never escape until all buildings containing it are no longer standing. Nick Smith, ITV News.
How little they knew about it in the past.
Oh, absolutely.
Gosh. Well, you're watching ITV News in the West Country with Kylie and Seb. Thank you for joining us this Thursday evening. Still ahead before 6:30.
Ideally, an airfield will be flat. Well, this isn't flat. So they had difficulty actually seeing the end of the runways.
Charlie finds out the secrets of this unusual airfield in Cornwall and just why it was put there.
It's all rather stunning and mysterious at the same time, isn't it?
It was all from a single viewer's picture. So there's that to look forward to. We've got the blue supermoon and some weather, which looks like it might be picking up a little bit. I'll see you in a few minutes.
And after us, the ITV News continues with the national and international stories at 6:30. Gamal Fambalay has the details for you.
Schools face closing their doors due to insecure infrastructure. Buildings across the country could be impacted where a weaker concrete was used in their construction. Job cuts expected within the week at Wilko as its rescue deal collapses once again. It's job number 5 in 12 months for Grant Shapps as he becomes Defence Secretary. And why this volleyball match will be etched into history. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
First, though, Cornwall's first Ukrainian cafe has opened in Falmouth. According to latest figures, 558 Ukrainians have made the county their home since the war broke out last year.
Well, one of those was Vlad Uzharnian, and he's now opened Ukrainian Soul with his family in the hope of bringing a taste of his country's culture and cuisine to Cornwall. And Charlotte Gay is there for us this evening. Charlotte, this cafe is very new, but it's already become a really important part of the community, hasn't it? Tell us about that.
Absolutely. I mean, welcome to Ukrainian Seoul. It, as you said, is the first Ukrainian cafe in the whole of Cornwall, and it is proving very, very popular. I have to admit, this cake display in the window in particular has been getting a lot of people's attention. But let me join now by Maxim. Maxim, you're one of the family members that are running here. How has it been starting up a cafe in Cornwall?
So we bought this place. We made all this new design in 1 week. It was hard week. We were working from 7 till 11, 12 every day. Yeah, we take a lot of rubbish out of here, made it and started it. So at the beginning it was hard. Yeah, I wasn't working with people before, so from Ukraine I wasn't like smile for everyone. But when everything calmed down, I started to like work with people, and yep, it's pretty good. I like people here. They're very kind, not like in Ukraine. Some part.
Well, you've got your smile perfected now, and it is very much feeling like a home from home. Thank you so much. We're just going to have a little walk through. Some of these people here, now you guys are here are regulars. How has the food been? You've just taken a big mouthful of that cake that we've been talking about. How is the food?
Amazing. It's really good. We
Apologies for language there, but they really do enjoy the food. Let's just walk through now to meet Vlad, who we were talking about a little bit earlier. Vlad, what atmosphere have you wanted to cultivate here in the cafe?
Yeah, so we tried our best to make like a village atmosphere. So you know, in Ukraine it's typical when you go to grandmother's place, and we try to make this kind of atmosphere. So we've got this stylish things in this type of case, and we try to make food like in this type of style, but obviously Ukrainian food, it comes all from the village.
Yeah, and you're actually studying game design at Falmouth University at the moment, and your family, you didn't run hospitality businesses back in Ukraine. This is all new. How are you finding changing and adapting to this?
Yes, to be honest, when we first started it, we had no experience, we had no idea how it goes, but when we started it, we went through lots of difficulties, but anyway, we've done it, I would say, and we're still learning new things, and we're still going through the difficulties.
Yeah, well, fantastic. As we can see, it's all been well received. You've seen lots of people in here throughout the day, lots of amazing Ukrainian food, and, I might just have a little tuck in when you guys go back to the rest of the news.
Lucky you, Charlotte. Thanks very much. And apologies if you heard any bad language there in that report. OK, it's time to look at a bit of sport for you now. Next to City's manager says the club's looking forward to hosting Premier League side Luton Town in the third round of the EFL Cup. It's the first time the Grecians have reached this stage of the competition since 1989. The date has yet to be fixed.
Yeah, first and foremost, I think it's great we got a home draw. To play at SGP again in front of our own supporters is always special. To bring a Premier League team to the stadium will be a great occasion. And when that comes around, we'll really look forward to it.
And some great news from Australia for Devon's para bowls pairing of Stephen Hartley and Alison Yearling. They're through to the semi-finals of the World Bowls Championships in the visually impaired mixed pairs. Stephen, who's from Tavistock, and Alison from Plymouth will take on South Africa tomorrow morning. Good luck to them as well.
Yeah, definitely. OK, it's weather time now. Charlie's here, but we're not going to start with the weather. We're used to you looking at, an in-depth look at the weather, aren't we?
Yes.
You love it all. Geek,
I do.
Maybe. Weather geek,
Yeah,
I would say, without being offensive.
There's no doubt about that.
He's right there.
You've been out and about, though, looking at some of the more interesting parts of our region that maybe we don't get to see.
That's right, and this particular place is interesting because it is kind of obvious for those that will go there, partly because you drive right across the middle of this place. It's a huge expanse. It's Davidstow Airfield, OK, and this all stemmed from a viewer's pitch of a particular part of it. I wanted to go behind closed doors, and this is the next episode in our series of Behind Closed Doors. I've been looking at the history and the significance of one of Cornwall's biggest wartime airfields. Davidstow Airfield is probably somewhere you've driven along on by loads of times, but there are a couple of hidden things, like that control tower there, and a few other hidden gems that you might not know so much about. But I've been speaking to someone who knows an awful lot about this place. And that man is Stephen Perry. He's been curator of the museum here since 2007, gives tours of the airfield, and is absolutely passionate about its history.
The airfield was built here in 1942, built as a bomber station, but it was built for coastal command. All the other airfields were coastal and subject to sea fog. When the sea fog rolled in, it was closable. So when they decided to build this additional airfield at Davidstow, they come above the level of sea fog. But we can get months at a time without fog. We haven't had fog for ages. But we did have a classic a few weeks ago, and all around us was white. White fog all below us, and Davidstow was an island on a sea of fog. And that's why they built it here.
The control tower doesn't look like the ones we see at modern airports, but as a classic of its time, we went inside to explore and find out more.
This would have been the communications centre, right, with a hatch leading through into the main ops room. Yeah. Here was a duty pilot's bunk. Oh, right. He wouldn't be flying anywhere, but if somebody upstairs got a problem, he wants to talk to a pilot. Yeah. He don't want to talk to the man who's making the tea. Yeah. A pilot is who he wants to talk to.
And so what's through here?
This would have been the main ops room. Radios along the front, big windows, looking right across the centre of the main runway. And the main runway is in line with the prevailing wind. Because it's on the crest of a hill, you cannot actually see the end of all the runways. Ideally, an airfield will be flat. Well, this isn't flat. So they had difficulty actually seeing the end of the runways. They'd often have to go up onto the roof, and this tower is built 4 feet higher than a normal tower to try and give better visibility to the end of the runways.
Back on solid ground, it turns out that the airfield has seen lots of use since the end of World War II, and not just for flying.
In the 50s, it was a Formula 1 racing circuit.
That's amazing.
This is totally bizarre. For about 4 years, it was Formula 1 racing on a massive scale. Grandstands were built alongside the main runway. They'd build a pedestrian bridge over the main runway. Thousands upon thousands of people would line the runways. Stirling Moss raced here. Lotus had their first ever win here, and Colin Chapman was here to watch his car win. Ken Tyrrell raced here. The military still do use it as a training area. We often get Chinook helicopters, Merlins, Wildcat. We have had Apache in the past, and troops, usually the Royal Marines, come out here to exercise. But the side where we are, because it's still used by a flying club today, is not actually registered as right to roam, and a flying club do use this.
It's comforting to know that this huge space is still appreciated and used today. While bombers may have been replaced with campers and wildlife, the history and secrecy lives on through the museum and Stephen's devotion to Davidstow.
Amazing. Steve knows his stuff, eh?
Oh, I could have talked to him all day. And in fact, he told me another anecdote about a German visitor, tourist, who came to a cafe 20 or 30 years ago, and he said, "Is there an airfield near here?" They said, "Yeah, it's just down the road." He didn't believe it existed. He'd been sent on bombing missions and he couldn't find it. That's just how secret it was.
Wow.
And it all stemmed from a picture from one of you at home. So if you've got somewhere that you think we should go behind closed doors, then just let us know, and it may well feature on a subsequent episode.
Right. Let's talk about the blue supermoon.
Yes.
Wasn't it amazing? I did get to see it.
It
Tried
was.
to photograph it, didn't work.
It's really tricky. We'll take a look at some pictures right now because we had some brilliant ones in from you guys at home as well. This was from Callington, and you're right, very difficult one to picture, partly because it's obviously so far away. If you've got some good equipment, then it really can work out brilliant. This one from Sue in Exmouth as well, just showing the different colours as it rose. It was a blue moon because the second full moon within the same calendar month. And it was a supermoon, it was that little bit bigger, which you can see brilliantly here from the view from Borough Mump. So it was a spectacular thing. That combination, well, it may not happen exactly until, I think it's 2037, but that's for it to become a supermoon and a blue moon. Blue moons themselves are a little bit more common than you might think, but it just goes to show, doesn't it? Even on a cloudy night, it's always worth keeping your eyes to the skies. And to that end, the weather for the next few days is looking up.
Whatever the weather, it always feels like home. Valent Heat Pumps and Boilers sponsor ITV West Country Weather.
Well, as we head into tomorrow, we are seeing some improvements, though a bit of fog tonight. That's a sure sign that autumn's not too far away, and a few showers cropping up through tomorrow. But temperatures picking up ever so slightly. We've just got to get rid of this low pressure that's brought to the, well, inclement weather today. That'll be the focus for a few showers on Friday. Then high pressure builds in as we head into the weekend, which is going to settle things down quite nicely. Bring us more sunshine, also bring us some higher temperatures into the start of next week, at least anyway. Might see a bit of rain graze in the immediate south coast over the next couple of hours, but for most it's a pretty dry night. There'll be some fog developing. Might be one or two more showers just creeping in towards the end of the night as well. Temperatures down to 13 or 14 Celsius, much like last night. And any fog that does form goes fairly quickly as we head through the course of Friday morning, leaving us with a lot more sunshine, certainly a brighter start than we saw this morning. But with that, we might see a couple of slow-moving heavy showers developing. That's one to watch as we head through the course of the daytime. Temperatures up to around 20 degrees again, not such a humid feel, I don't think, but yeah, some of those showers could be on the sharp side. And high tide as we head through the course of tomorrow. Portland, 9 in the morning, and again at 7 minutes past 9 in the evening. One or two more showers perhaps as we head through Saturday, few and far between really, because as that high pressure builds in, we just see increasing amounts of dry weather and sunshine. And look at those temperatures into the start of next week. Low to mid-20s in a couple of places. That'll feel a little bit warmer than we have been used to recently. But for the time being, perhaps one or two more moody skies. Paul taking this brilliant panorama, looking out from Watch It. Calm seas, but a different story in the sky above. Some pretty energetic clouds up there.
Valent Heat Pumps and Boilers sponsor ITV West Country Weather.
Charlie, thanks very much indeed. Now, just before we go, have you ever seen a horse trying to catch a bus?
Well, residents in a Devon town have. Passers-by in Exmouth were completely baffled when the animal stepped on board the number 57 service to Exeter and greeted passengers. You can read the full story over on our website. I wonder what he said to them. Hey. That's it from the two of us. Victoria will have the late news at 10:30.
Have a lovely evening. Bye-bye.
Bye.